Maya Rodriguez wiped grease off her hands with a rag that had seen better decades. Her garage stayed open late because someone had to fix the endless parade of junkers that limped through downtown Phoenix. Tonight's victim was a 2015 Honda that sounded like a dying whale having an argument with a blender. "Come on, you beautiful disaster," she muttered, wrestling with a particularly stubborn bolt. "Just let me help you stop embarrassing yourself." That's when the sky lit up like someone had plugged Christmas into a nuclear reactor. Maya poked her head out from under the hood just in time to see something that definitely wasn't in any mechanic's manual descending from the clouds. The ship looked like someone had crossbred a jellyfish with a chrome toaster, and it was heading straight for her garage with all the subtlety of a meteor having a bad day. "Well, that's new," Maya said, "because when you've spent 15 years fixing things that shouldn't work but somehow do, your definition of weird gets pretty flexible." The ship landed with a sound like someone dropping a refrigerator full of wind chimes. A door that seemed to exist more as a suggestion than actual matter shimmered open. And out stepped something that looked like what would happen if a crocodile decided to cosplay as a disco ball. Commander Zeph'tak of the Galactic Acquisition Fleet had never encountered a species that didn't immediately prostrate themselves before his magnificent 7-foot frame of scaled superiority. His uniform gleamed with medals he'd awarded himself, and his reptilian smile revealed teeth that could double as industrial can openers. "Primitive creature," he announced in perfect English, because apparently universal translators were standard equipment, but manners were optional. "You have been selected for collection by the mighty Hegemony. Surrender now and your processing will be merely humiliating instead of actively painful." Maya looked him up and down like she was pricing scrap metal. "Okay, first of all, rude. Second of all, did you just call me primitive while wearing what looks like a Halloween costume that got into a fight with a bedazzler?" Zeph'tak's confident expression flickered. In his 300 years of acquisition missions, no one had ever responded with snark. Usually there was more screaming and begging. "Silence, flesh creature. You will come with me or face the consequences of defying the hegemony." "Or," Maya said, hefting a wrench with the casual confidence of someone who'd used it to negotiate with stubborn machinery and occasionally stubborn customers, "you could get back in your flying disco ball and find someone who cares about your little space tantrum." What happened next would later be remembered in Galactic Fleet Academy as the incident that broke Commander Zeph'tak's brain. Maya didn't just resist, she counterattacked. The wrench flew through the air with the accuracy of someone who'd been throwing tools at problems for most of her adult life, connecting with Zeph'tak's scaled forehead with a deeply satisfying clang. Did you just assault a superior being?" Zeph'tak stammered, more confused than injured. "Superior? Honey, I've seen more impressive specimens in a pet store aquarium." Two more aliens emerged from the ship, looking like discount versions of their commander. They moved to flank Maya, clearly expecting her to surrender now that she was outnumbered. Instead, Maya grabbed a can of brake fluid and started spraying it like the world's most automotive pepper spray. "Back off, space lizards. This stuff will eat through chrome, and I'm betting it won't do your fancy outfits any favors either." The aliens recoiled, not because brake fluid was particularly dangerous to them, but because no primitive creature had ever fought back with such creative hostility. They'd studied hundreds of species, and the reaction was always the same: fear, submission, maybe some light bargaining. Not aggressive chemical warfare accompanied by insults about their appearance. Zeph'tak finally managed to activate his stunner, and Maya dropped like a sack of wrenches. But as consciousness faded, she managed one final act of defiance. She gave them the finger. "What does that gesture mean?" asked Sub-Commander Grixex. "I believe it's some form of primitive blessing," Zeph'tak replied, having absolutely no idea he was wrong about everything. Maya woke up with a headache that felt like someone had used her skull for percussive maintenance. The cell around her was all smooth curves and soft glowing surfaces, clearly designed by someone who thought comfort was more important than actual security. "Great," she muttered, testing the force field that hummed across the entrance. "Kidnapped by aliens with a subscription to better homes and galaxies." "You're awake." The voice came from another cell across the corridor. Maya turned to see what appeared to be a cross between a hamster and a very apologetic college professor. I'm Pip Knox from Kepler 442 billion. You're the first human they've brought in. We were starting to think your species was too primitive for collection. Too primitive? Maya laughed. Buddy, we figured out how to split atoms just to see what would happen, then decided to strap them to rockets for fun. Our entire species runs on caffeine, spite, and the unshakable belief that any problem can be solved by hitting it with the right tool. More faces appeared at cell entrances. Maya found herself looking at what could generously be described as a galactic petting zoo of inferior species. There was Vex, who looked like a blue peacock that had gone to business school, and Mumble, whose species apparently communicated through interpretive dance but had somehow mastered interstellar travel anyway. The hegemony collects us as exotic pets, Pip Knox explained with the resigned tone of someone who'd given this speech before. We're sold to wealthy families across the galaxy. Some of us get nice homes, some get research labs, some get... He shuddered. Let me get this straight, Maya said. These lizard-brained fashion disasters are running an interstellar puppy mill? Before anyone could answer, the corridor filled with the sound of approaching footsteps. Commander Zeph'tak appeared, flanked by his subordinates and looking like he'd spent the trip practicing his intimidating glare in a mirror. Ah, the primitive creature awakens, he announced. Welcome to your new reality, flesh being. You are now property of the Galactic Hegemony, destined for a life of comfortable servitude to your betters. Maya stared at him for a long moment. Did you seriously just monologue at me? Like a cartoon villain? Do you have any idea how ridiculous you sound? Zeph'tak's eye twitched. I am Commander Zeph'tak of the EA. Yeah, I heard you the first time, Zeph. Mind if I call you Zeph? You seem like a Zeph kind of guy. Very Zeph-y. That is not, you cannot simply, Zeph'tak sputtered. Look, Zeph, I'm in a level with you here. I've had customers try to intimidate me over a $50 break job. I've been threatened by soccer moms whose minivans I couldn't fix in time for carpool. You're going to have to try a lot harder if you want to impress me. From behind Zeph'tak, a smaller alien that looked like a nervous gecko cleared his throat. Commander? Her stress readings are all wrong. Most species show terror spikes when you do the intimidation speech. Hers are. Actually going down? Silence, Glix. Zeph'tak snapped. The readings are obviously malfunctioning. Actually, Maya interjected. I'm finding this pretty relaxing. It's nice to meet someone whose ego is bigger than their brain. Makes me feel right at home. Glix, the nervous technician, started frantically checking his instruments. In all his years of monitoring captured species, he'd never seen readings like this. Where there should be fear, he found curiosity. Where there should be despair, he found what appeared to be amusement. Your species will learn respect, Zeph'tak declared, but his voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. The hegemony has successfully pacified over 2,000 worlds. Congratulations, Maya said dryly. That's like bragging about beating up kindergartners. Real impressive, big guy. The other prisoners watched this exchange with growing amazement. In their cultures, challenging authority was unthinkable. Yet here was this human, treating their captors like annoying middle managers rather than terrifying overlords. I think, Pip Knox whispered to Vex, we might be witnessing something unprecedented. Yeah, Maya called over, having heard him perfectly. You're witnessing a human having a really bad day. And trust me, you do not want to be around for those. 3 days into her captivity, Maya had reached a conclusion. Aliens were terrible at being evil overlords. Their security system was less impenetrable fortress and more polite suggestion to stay put. The force field hummed with a frequency that made her teeth itch, but more importantly, it interfered with the nearby door mechanism every 12 minutes when the power cycled for maintenance. You know what your problem is? Maya called to Glix, who was running his daily status checks. The nervous technician had become her favorite target mainly because he actually listened instead of just posturing. I have many problems, Glix replied honestly. Could you be more specific? Your tech is too perfect. Everything's automated, self-repairing, idiot-proof. You guys have never had to fix anything with duct tape and pure stubbornness. Why would we use primitive adhesive materials when we have molecular bonding? Because, Maya said, palming the small piece of metal she'd been working loose from her cot for 2 days, sometimes the primitive solution is the one nobody sees coming. When the power cycle hit, Maya jammed her makeshift pick into the door mechanism and twisted. The force field flickered, sparked, and died with a sound like someone stepping on a digital cat. How did you? Glix stared at his instruments in confusion. That's not possible. The security protocols should have prevented any tampering. Your protocols didn't account for percussive maintenance, Maya said, stepping out of her cell and immediately moving to free the others. You guys program for every scenario except the stupid ones. Within minutes, she had the entire cell block open. The other prisoners stood in their doorways, looking like they weren't quite sure what to do with freedom when it arrived ahead of schedule. Okay, team, Maya announced. Time for some aggressive problem-solving. Glix, where's your engineering section? I cannot tell you that. Glix protested. It's against regulations. Buddy, look around. Your regulations just got served an eviction notice. You can either help us fix this situation, or you can explain to your boss how you let a bunch of primitives break out of a maximum security facility using a piece of bed frame. Glix considered this. His career was already ruined. His instruments were giving readings that made no sense. His entire worldview was developing serious structural cracks. On the other hand, the human made a compelling argument. Deck 7, he mumbled. But the engineering section is heavily guarded. Guards I can handle, Maya said. It's the bureaucracy that kills you. 20 minutes later, Maya stood in the ship's engineering section, surrounded by technology that hummed with efficiency and purpose. To her trained eye, it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. Also, it was completely wrong. This is your problem right here, she announced to the bewildered engineering staff. You've got 17 backup systems for everything, but they're all fighting each other for priority. No wonder your power cycles every 12 minutes, your own safety protocols are having an argument. The lead engineer, a creature that looked like a very serious mushroom, attempted to object. Our systems are optimized for maximum efficiency and safety. They cannot be improved by primitive tinkering. Watch me, Maya said. What followed would later be studied in engineering schools across 3-star systems as either the most brilliant or most insane display of improvisational technology repair ever recorded. Maya didn't follow the technical manuals, she rewrote them. She didn't respect the safety protocols, she made them work better by making them simpler. She rerouted power couplings with techniques that shouldn't have worked but did. She bypassed quantum flux regulators by creating analog solutions that ran more smoothly than the originals. She took a ship that operated at 93% efficiency and pushed it to 107%, which according to the laws of physics was impossible. And according to Maya was just Tuesday. How are you doing this? Glix asked, watching his instruments register performance levels he'd never seen before. Easy, Maya replied, elbow deep in a plasma conduit that was now running cooler and faster than it had ever run before. You guys design like you're afraid of breaking something. Humans design like we're planning to break everything on purpose, so we build it tough enough to survive us. The engineering staff watched in fascination as Maya turned their perfectly adequate systems into something that actually deserved the word perfect. More importantly, she did it while explaining every step in terms they could understand. The psychological warfare is just starting, she told Pip Knox, who had become her self-appointed assistant. I just proved that everything they think they know about superior technology is wrong. Now they have to choose between admitting they were wrong or doubling down on stupid. Which do you think they'll choose? Maya grinned. Oh, they'll definitely choose stupid. Humans aren't the only species that hate admitting mistakes. The difference is, we're usually smart enough to learn from them eventually. By hour 36 of what the crew had started calling the situation, Maya had turned the ship's detention level into something resembling a very aggressive democracy. The former prisoners had formed committees. They had elected representatives. They had drawn up a charter of demands that included better food, educational opportunities, and strongly worded complaints about the interior decorating. "This is not how captive species behave," Zeph'tak announced to his senior staff, his voice carrying the distinct tone of someone whose reality had started charging him rent he couldn't afford. "They should be grateful for our benevolent oversight." "Sir," reported Sub-Commander Grixx, "the human has somehow convinced the Kepler 442 billion delegation to demand workers' compensation for their time in captivity. They're threatening to file a grievance with their planetary labor board." "They don't have a planetary labor board. They're primitives." "They do now, sir. The human helped them establish one yesterday during lunch break." Zeph'tak's left eye developed a twitch that would plague him for the rest of his career. "What about the others?" "The vegan delegation has unionized. The Altarians are demanding educational credits for their imprisonment." "And the humans?" Grix paused. "There's still only one human, sir, but she somehow multiplied her effectiveness through what she calls delegation and strategic irritation." Meanwhile, 3 decks below, Maya was conducting what could generously be called a staff meeting, and what Zeph'tak would later describe in his incident reports as aggressive organizational restructuring by hostile primitives. "Okay, people," Maya announced to her diverse audience. "Here's the situation. We're on a ship full of beings who think they're superior because they've never had to actually solve a problem. They've got better tech, more experience, and home field advantage. Questions?" Vex raised a wing. "How is this a good situation for us?" Because Maya grinned, "They've also got massive egos, no flexibility, and absolutely no idea how to handle anything that doesn't go according to their manual. We're going to give them so many problems their little lizard brains are going to overheat trying to categorize them all." The plan Maya outlined would later be taught in military academies under the heading asymmetric warfare by beings who clearly don't understand the concept of impossible. It involved simultaneous operations on 17 different fronts, none of which should have been possible given their resources, and all of which depended on the enemy continuing to underestimate what primitive species could accomplish when properly motivated. Phase 1 was infrastructure. Maya had already proven she could improve their systems. Now she was going to improve them selectively. Life support in the detention areas got better. Life support in the command areas got temperamental. Phase 2 was psychological. Every time the crew tried to reassert authority, they found themselves arguing with committees, filling out forms and dealing with formal complaints filed in triplicate. Maya had weaponized bureaucracy. Phase 3 was chaos. Not the destructive kind, the productive kind. The kind that happens when someone who understands systems introduces creative inefficiency to an organization that runs on rigid protocol. "Commander," Glix reported nervously, "the primitives have submitted a formal request for a ship tour so they can better understand their temporary accommodations." "Denied." "They've also filed a complaint about the denial, requested a review board to examine the complaint, and asked for documentation proving we have the authority to keep them prisoner under galactic maritime law." "We don't follow galactic maritime law. We're a military vessel." "Yes, sir, but they provided documentation suggesting that since we're transporting captured civilians for commercial purposes, we're technically operating as a merchant vessel and subject to maritime regulations." Zeph'tak stared at the stack of paperwork that had somehow materialized on his desk. "How do they even know about maritime law?" "The human says she learned it from late-night legal drama shows and that one time she got arrested for disturbing the peace during a customer service dispute." It was at this point that Zeph'tak realized he was no longer dealing with a simple acquisition mission. He was dealing with someone who had turned captivity into a hostile takeover. The final straw came when Maya appeared on the bridge, escorted by 2 very confused guards who couldn't quite explain how she'd convinced them she was supposed to be there. "Hey, Zeph," she called cheerfully. "Love what you've done with the place. Very evil overlord chic. We need to talk." "You're not authorized to be on this bridge." "Actually," Maya said, pulling out a document that definitely hadn't existed that morning. "According to Regulation 847B of the Galactic Maritime Code, the prisoners being transported for commercial purposes have the right to address the ship's captain regarding conditions of transport." That's you, right? Zeph'tak looked at the document. It appeared to be official. It was covered in stamps and signatures. It was also completely fake, but Maya had made it look so authentic that even she was starting to believe it. This is not a commercial vessel. Then why, Maya asked with the innocent tone of someone loading a rhetorical weapon, are you planning to sell us? And that's when Commander Zeph'tak realized he'd been outmaneuvered by someone who'd learned military strategy from customer service disputes and legal procedure from television reruns. Maya's takeover of the ship's communication system happened so smoothly that the bridge crew didn't realize what was happening until she was already talking to two different governments and the Galactic Council's emergency hotline. Hi there, she said brightly into the main communications array. Having somehow convinced Glix to give her the access codes by explaining that she just wanted to check in with the family. This is Maya Rodriguez, representing the previously unknown species Homo sapiens from the planet Earth, currently aboard the Hegemony vessel. What's this ship called? The Inevitable Conquest, Zeph'tak replied automatically, then immediately regretted it. The Inevitable Conquest. Great name, very subtle. I'm calling to report what I believe might be a small diplomatic incident involving the attempted enslavement of an entire species without proper first contact protocols. The response was immediate and came from 3 different sources simultaneously. Earth's newly established Space Defense Command wanted to know why they were just learning about aliens now. The Hegemony High Command wanted to know why one of their ships was allowing primitives to use military communications. And the Galactic Council wanted to know why nobody had filed the proper paperwork for a first contact scenario. Oh, this is fun, Maya said, splitting the signal to address all 3 audiences at once. Earth, meet the Galactic Community. Galactic Community, meet Earth. Hegemony, meet the concept of legal consequences. What followed was the most complicated diplomatic crisis in recorded galactic history. Maya had managed to turn a simple kidnapping into an interstellar incident involving territorial rights, species recognition, trade agreements, and what appeared to be the galaxy's first class action lawsuit filed by multiple species against their own captors. You cannot do this, Zeph'tak protested. You are primitives. You have no standing in galactic law. Actually, Maya replied, consulting notes she'd apparently been taking throughout their captivity. According to the Galactic Council's own charter, any species capable of interstellar communication is considered eligible for diplomatic recognition. I'm communicating across interstellar distances right now. So congratulations, you just gave humanity legal standing by kidnapping me. The situation deteriorated further when Earth's military, having been informed that their citizens were being sold as pets, responded with what could diplomatically be called aggressive concern. The transmission from Earth included detailed specifications for something called Project Angry Chihuahua, which appeared to be humanity's plan for turning every piece of space debris in their solar system into a weapons platform. They're not actually going to weaponize asteroids, Maya assured the increasingly nervous alien crew. That's just a negotiating position. Probably. Memmer. But the real masterpiece came when Maya managed to conference in representatives from every world the Hegemony had ever acquired specimens from. Suddenly, the bridge was filled with voices from hundreds of civilizations demanding to know what had happened to their missing citizens. Hi everyone, Maya said to the growing crowd of very upset galactic representatives. I'm Maya, and I think we might have some common interests regarding our reptilian friends here. The Hegemony, it turned out, had been operating their collection business in a legal gray area for centuries, relying on the fact that primitive species didn't have the resources or knowledge to complain to the proper authorities. Maya had just provided those resources and knowledge to anyone who wanted them. This is impossible, Zeph'tak muttered, watching his career evaporate in real time as formal complaints piled up faster than his staff could read them. One primitive creature cannot destroy an entire military operation. You're right, Maya agreed. One primitive creature can't destroy a military operation. But one primitive creature can definitely expose a criminal enterprise masquerading as a military operation. There's a difference. The final nail in the coffin came when the Galactic Council's emergency response team arrived to mediate the situation. They took one look at the evidence Maya had compiled, cross-referenced it with the hundreds of missing persons reports that had been gathering dust in bureaucratic filing systems, and immediately declared the Hegemony's acquisition program to be so illegal. It's actually impressive. Commander Zeph'tak, announced the lead investigator, a being that looked like a very disappointed filing cabinet. You are hereby relieved of duty pending investigation for violations of approximately 4,000 different galactic regulations, including several we didn't know existed until today. But we are the Hegemony. We bring order to chaos. You, Maya interjected, brought chaos to order. And then I brought order to your chaos. It's like chaos inception, but with more paperwork. As Zeph'tak was led away in what appeared to be galactic handcuffs, Maya found herself facing a new and unexpected problem. She was now Earth's official first contact representative, despite having no diplomatic training, no governmental authority, and no idea what she was doing. Don't worry, she told the concerned Galactic Council representatives. I've been winging it this whole time. How hard can interstellar diplomacy be? 6 months later, Maya Rodriguez sat in what had once been Commander Zeph'tak's office, now serving as the headquarters of Earth's Interstellar Relations Department. The walls were covered with star charts, diplomatic agreements, and a hand-drawn organizational chart that looked like it had been designed by someone who thought bureaucracy was a contact sport. Maya, announced her assistant, entering with a stack of reports that suggested the galaxy's problems had somehow multiplied since humanity joined the conversation. The Altarian delegation is here about the mining dispute. The Kepler 442 billion representatives want to discuss the new trade agreements. And Commander Zeph'tak is asking if you have a minute to review his proposal for the prisoner rehabilitation program. Maya looked up from the technical manual she'd been annotating something called advanced hyperdrive maintenance that she'd been improving with helpful notes like this is unnecessarily complicated, and have you tried turning it off and on again? Send them all in, she said, and tell Zeph I'll look at his proposal after lunch. How's he doing with the adjustment program? Better than expected. He's actually quite good at logistics when he's not trying to conquer anyone. It had been Maya's idea to put the former Hegemony officers to work solving the problems they'd created. Zeph'tak, it turned out, had an excellent mind for organizational systems. He'd just been using it for evil. Now he was helping coordinate the massive effort to return displaced persons to their home worlds and establishing support systems for those who wanted to start new lives elsewhere. The rehabilitation program is working, Maya told the assembled representatives as they filed into her office. Turns out most of the Hegemony's problems came from boredom and a lack of creative challenges. Give them something constructive to do, and they're actually quite helpful. The meeting that followed would have been impossible to imagine a year earlier. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat around a conference table that Maya had cobbled together from ship parts, discussing trade routes, cultural exchange programs, and the establishment of the galaxy's first interspecies technical college. The humans had proposed something called a makerspace, reported Pip Knox, who now served as the liaison for smaller civilizations. It's apparently a place where beings from different worlds can work together to solve problems using whatever materials are available. It's like a garage, Maya explained, but for the entire galaxy. Somewhere people can go to fix things, build things, and figure out how to make impossible things work anyway. The Galactic Council had initially been skeptical of humanity's approach to interstellar relations. Most species joined the galactic community with centuries of preparation, formal protocols, and carefully planned integration strategies. Humans had shown up by accident, immediately started fixing things that weren't broken, and somehow made them work better. The human approach to problem solving is, the Council's official report had stated, unconventional but remarkably effective. They appear to view every challenge as an opportunity to prove that their species can accomplish anything through sufficient stubbornness and creative application of basic principles. Maya's favorite part of her new job was the consulting requests. It seemed like every civilization in the galaxy had problems that their best minds couldn't solve, problems that humans could fix with what they considered basic common sense. The Andromedans are having trouble with their planetary defense grid, reported Glix, who now served as Maya's technical liaison. Their systems are too sophisticated to maintain properly. schedule a team to visit next month, Maya replied. We'll show them how to build redundancy into their redundancy systems, and remind them that sometimes the best solution is the simple one. The transformation hadn't been limited to technology. Maya had accidentally introduced the galaxy to several human concepts that were revolutionizing interspecies relations. The idea that different civilizations might have something to learn from each other had been novel. The idea that primitive species might actually be specialists in areas that advanced species had overcomplicated was causing philosophical crises across multiple star systems. Maya, Vex called from across the room, where she was coordinating what appeared to be the galaxy's first interstellar music festival. The Earth delegation wants to know if they can send a mariachi band to the Rigel System's cultural exchange program. Why not? Maya replied. Music is a universal language. Well, almost universal. And if it doesn't translate, at least it'll be interesting. The final report of the day came from Earth itself, where humanity was adapting to their new role as the galaxy's favorite problem solvers with characteristic enthusiasm. NASA had been renamed the Department of Creative Solutions. The military had established a new branch called Diplomatic Engineering. And somewhere in Nevada, a team of mechanics was apparently working on improvements to faster-than-light travel based on the principle that anything can be fixed if you hit it with the right tool in the right place. As the last of the day's meetings concluded and her staff headed home to various worlds across the galaxy, Maya found herself alone in her office with Commander Zeph'tak, who had been waiting patiently with his latest project proposal. I've been thinking, he said, setting down a carefully prepared report, about what you said regarding boredom and creative challenges. Yeah? I think the hegemony's real problem wasn't that we were evil. We were just underutilized. We had all this capability and nothing interesting to do with it. Maya looked at the report. It was a comprehensive plan for establishing interstellar emergency response teams using former hegemony ships and personnel to provide disaster relief, technical assistance, and rapid response services to any civilization that needed help. You want to turn your conquest fleet into a cosmic AAA service? Is that what you call it? Zeph'tak considered this. Yes, I think that's exactly what I want to do. Maya grinned. Zeph, that's either the best idea you've ever had, or the most human idea you've ever had. Possibly both. As she approved the proposal and added it to the growing pile of projects that were reshaping galactic civilization, Maya reflected on how much had changed since that night in her garage when a flying disco ball had landed in her life. She'd been kidnapped by aliens, accidentally started a diplomatic revolution, and somehow became responsible for helping an entire galaxy learn that the best way to solve most problems was to stop overthinking them. Not bad for a girl from Phoenix, she murmured, then got back to work. The galaxy wasn't going to fix itself, but with enough coffee, determination, and strategic application of human stubbornness, she was pretty sure they could teach it how.